Seriously though, please make the case. Relic block chainsword is better than Artificer block chainsword. Change my mind. Alright, so we have somebody with some blocking hot takes, it seems, and if you had been keeping up with blocking conversations, there is a purple rarity Artificer block chainsword that is ridiculously fast. It feels really good to use, and it is very powerful. However, it's definitely one of those weapons that I feel like if people just pick it up for the first time, they might not 100% understand why the weapon is so strong. And then, not to mention, we were also talking about relic melee weapons recently, and, you know, basically how contested health for melee is pretty terrible. So, ultimately in this conversation here, we are going to dive into how people are, A, going to react to this, because this kind of fuels the flames of a hot take debate here around blocking weapons, and B, we're definitely going to break down exactly why the Artificer is better than the Relic block chainsword. We've also talked about if devs should switch this up. I think in patch 9, this might be something that they look into. They did mention balance changes in patch 9, so I'm not 100% sure what they would need to balance around melee weapons outside of making sure they can get you contested health back. But like for the balance of relic weapons, if they really are losing out on DPS to an Artificer weapon, I do think the devs would be at least a tad bit interested to kind of iron that out and maybe make the relic weapon more appealing to a lesser rarity and easier to get weapon. So, yeah, we're gonna jump into the conversation here. However, this guy definitely starts off the debate. It might not even be a debate. The Artificer block chainsword might just be, on paper, 100% better than the Relic chainsword. So, well, yeah, we're gonna look into how people react to this one, because I can imagine it will be very, very logical and well-reasoned. I see many people prefer the Artificer block chainsword over the Relic version, and I would like to understand why. I've been prestiging Vanguard using the block chainsword, and from my limited experience of the Relic version, it just seems better. The usual arguments I hear in favor of the Artificer version is that it's faster, which is objectively true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. In order to be better, the speed needs to enable you to do something you can't do with the Relic version. Otherwise, the Relic will just do more damage. I see two possible impact speed could have. The faster speed lets you interrupt an attack sequence you couldn't otherwise. This is one I feel that is the most likely to give speed a meaningful impact. Yeah, you are quicker to stagger. I mean, hey, that works. However, in playing, I have found that I have no trouble interrupting Bone Swords and Whip Warrior combos or the Ravener combos. So what combos can you interrupt with the Artificer version that you can't with the Relic? I feel like that's a pretty interesting way to put that. I'm not 100% sure that's like a defining factor of why the speed appeals to people, you know, especially considering the Artificer block chainsword. I think it's more about combos for the chainsword and not combos against the chainsword, essentially. But yeah, as far as like Ravener combos or whatever, you still should be able to interrupt them pretty regularly with the Relic block chainsword. That makes sense. But yeah, as far as the Artificer goes, I think that's more about the combos of the Artificer. Since it's faster, you can get through the combos more, which makes sense. Like, you'd be getting to the stomp faster than you'd be getting to the stomp on the Relic block chainsword. The faster speed lets you get in a better attack sequence during the adrenaline surge buff. Maybe it is this one, but I think it is less likely than the first possible reason. Lets you get... Wait, hold on. Do you think the fact that the faster speed lets you get into a better attack sequence is less likely? Or it's less likely people... Hold on, maybe it is this one, but I think it is less likely than the first possible reason. Okay, I'm not too sure what they mean for this. Like, this is like the reason that the Artificer block chainsword is very highly regarded. It's just the fact that, yeah, you have, better attack sequence during the adrenaline surge buff. I mean, it's just a faster attack sequence. Which, yeah, I mean, even after adrenaline surge, you do get like a lingering buff after the explosion. So trying to get like and a swinging into like a shoulder bash is probably more of a, it's probably better. You can rely on it more with the Artificer block chainsword because you only get 2 seconds of like an after buff of the adrenaline surge. So basically, with a relic chainsword, you might not be fast enough to hit a swing into the, into the shoulder bash. You might not be fast enough to hit that second part of the combo, but I'm not 100% sure. Normally, when it comes to blocking weapons, I don't really pay that much attention to the after buff of the explosion. There's like a 2 seconds lingering buff after the initial blocking explosion. So I would assume within 2 seconds, you need a faster weapon. I mean, that makes sense. With the Relic, I can full throttle skip and land a light 2, light 3, and stomp for a total of 97.5 base damage per the community spreadsheet. So what combo can you get off in that window with the Artificer version that you can't with Relic? Oh, well, that's interesting. I mean, if Relic still can get a good combo after the, after the adrenaline surge explosion, I think that's fine. I mean, dude, I don't think anyone's saying the Relic chainsword is bad. I think it's more about the Artificer chainsword having more utility and being a little bit faster through the combos. So it puts you into a better position to stomp and shoulder bash when you need to, essentially. I kind of see what they're getting at, though, here, because they do mention the base damage here, and that is some pretty good damage. I think the Artificer, as far as the spreadsheet goes and the actual, like last time we talked about this, I think the Artificer block chainsword is, as far as like the full combo, it's pretty much just a little bit behind on damage, but it's very comparable. Like, it's still in the 90s, I believe. So, I mean, that's pretty much the discussion with the Relic block chainsword. Is it, like, the extra damage it gets, is it worth it for being a little bit slower? That's pretty much the conversation here. And I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't really, change any breakpoints or anything like that. And not to mention, the Artificer block chainsword, that's, I believe it's base damage that it kind of just comes up a little bit short to Relic. But that's not considering the actual blocking buffs both of them have. But still, with the Artificer block chainsword, even though it's a little bit faster, it's still very comparable in damage, especially considering adrenaline surge. So the, like, 5, maybe 6, maybe 10 damage you're losing out on really doesn't mean that much if you're getting through your combos faster. Overall, DPS is going to be very comparable to the Relic chainsword, and frankly, the way most people look at it is if, like, hey, why would I be a little bit extra slower for no reason? Basically, sure, the relic chainsword can get through the same combos. I agree with that. I think they have a good point here, where if they're getting the same combos off and, obviously getting a lot of damage from it, what appeal does the Artificer block chainsword really has besides the speed? And I think the speed is probably more important than this guy's saying, because getting to the stomp fast can definitely be the difference between you stomping and interrupting, or you stomping and trading. So that's pretty much how people look at it, and I think they have a pretty fair point about that. But I will admit, they definitely make a pretty good stand here for their point for the Relic blocking chainsword. I'm going to see how people react to this one. But this is like the first time we've ever actually seen somebody stick up, in a sense, for the Relic blocking chainsword. So I kind of like to see that. I do like the Relic blocking chainsword. Well, I use the Relic fencing chainsword sometimes, which is very slow. But normally I use that with like a ranged build. But still, even if you just have like a chainsword of any type, chainswords are very good. So I don't think anyone's mad at their chainsword choice, but I do like the conversation here, and basically the gameplay. We're talking about like a gameplay loop and how it can potentially benefit you more to just get through the loop a little bit faster. Very good points, brother. I think the argument is safer versus riskier. Regarding your first point, while you can interrupt a Ravener or a Lictor with both weapons, it can get a lot trickier in a brawl. A split second can be the difference between being staggered and doing the staggering. The Relic damage advantage can grant higher rewards though, as in you kill faster and can grant early execution opportunities. So it's a higher risk versus higher reward. Higher risk, higher reward versus lower risk, lower reward, in my opinion. For brothers not too familiar with enemy attack patterns and block timing, I would still be advocating for the Artificer. When you get more comfortable, by all means, try the Relic. Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm not 100% sure if I agree with the higher risk, higher... I think they're pretty similar with risk and rewards. However, they're right about this. The fact that the Artificer Chainsword is just a tad bit faster means that you are going to get there to stagger enemies just a tad bit faster. So I think that's obviously a very important part when it comes to melee, because without enemy stagger, like, the enemies will just absolutely obliterate you sometimes. You won't be able to trade with a lot, I can say that much. But yeah, I mean, this is the one interesting part that I'm not too sure I agree with is how they ended it here, where it's like, as soon as you're comfortable with the Artificer blockchain sword, go to the Relic. I think you should definitely just use whichever one you're more interested in using for the most part. But it's going to be hard to, once you see the advantages the Artificer blockchain sword brings to the table, I think it's pretty hard to go back to the Relic chainsword. If you're already pretty used to the Artificer one, just because of its speed, and, obviously you're going to get used to the breakpoints and everything. Now, with the Relic chainsword, maybe it is easier to get those breakpoints, but I do agree. I think maybe staggering an enemy just like a tad bit faster might be more important than getting them in executionable state faster. However, it should be very comparable. It's the contested health recovery increase with the perk that allows for 100% more recovery on heavy attacks. With the speed increase, you can get 2 shoulder charges. That is more than enough to recover all contested health. Wow, okay, is that true? Because that's kind of a game changer. I do think when it comes to contested health and recovery of it, yeah, speed is going to be a huge deal about that. Now, I'm pretty sure the Relic shoulder charges probably can do the same thing, but obviously getting to that shoulder charge faster is more important here because contested health fades. So the quicker you can refill your contested health, the more health you're going to have at the end. As far as this is kind of interesting because the shoulder charges, I use them sometimes, but I never really use them aggressively. However, I've seen people basically skip into them, and yeah, they are very strong if you're able to just bring them out consecutively. Basically, shoulder charge into like a shoulder charge is pretty wild. And then, not to mention, yeah, that perk definitely seems pretty useful. I can still see that perk, being useful on a Relic chainsword as well. But again, if you're able to get the shoulder charges, if you're able to get them out faster, you are going to be able to protect yourself a little bit more reliably than with the Relic chainsword, I think. Yeah, I mean, dude, this pretty much kind of caps off the debate, I think. One gets you contested health faster. That's, I think that may be the most important thing about it. But yeah, even the original poster down here said he's going to try it out, so I think somebody ended up changing his mind, I guess, right? That's kind of how, like, that meme sets it up. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's been a long time since we talked about blocking weapons, and I still think it's pretty funny how the community still, to this day, kind of debates blocking weapons and their impact. But overall, everyone really enjoys the Artificer blockchain sword, so I really wanted to see if, anyone had a point for the Relic chainsword. I do think they're basic points as saying, well, the Relic chainsword can still do the same stuff. Yeah, I guess. But still, if you can do the same stuff but faster, why wouldn't you, right? But ultimately, when it comes to the chainsword, I think there's not a bad answer here. Chainswords are very powerful, but the Artificer blockchain sword is starting to become one of those weapons that everyone just, like, very much enjoys. And I think when it comes to patch 9 and their balance, it would be kind of upsetting if they took that away from the Artificer blockchain sword. However, if we had Relic chain swords just be a little bit more faster, that would be pretty cool as well. And ultimately, we're gonna have to see what the devs decide to do on this, but this was definitely a point of, basically a balance issue, I guess. It's not really, though. But of lesser rarity weapons being stronger than Relic rarity weapons, I think there's a few examples of that, so I might want to see some of that kind of get ironed out in patch 9. I would rather see Relic weapons be just a little bit more powerful than lesser rarity weapons, just from the system itself. Like, if you get a purple weapon and it's stronger than your Relic weapons, are you going to be excited for leveling up that weapon? I guess you get perks though, right? You get some mastery points, so that's pretty good, I guess. But still, ultimately, it kind of leaves us in a weird limbo with rarities, and the fact that the Artificer or lesser rarity weapons even look better than relic weapons, I think that's more of a tell on certain relic weapons maybe needing a buff. But yeah, overall with this conversation, I think it's pretty simple at this point. If you like chainswords and you want them to be faster, use the Artificer block chainsword. If you like chainswords and you want them to hit a little bit harder, use the relic chainsword, right? But yeah, for now, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this one, and thanks for watching.